Hello and welcome back to the UKLC relegation tournament. Welcome back is a strong word. We're going into our first game of this tournament. I am Viperio, joined by Jamada, and Jamada, Viperio going up against Bulldog. This is going to be a really, really exciting matchup.
Yeah, I think so. And as he was kind of alluding to earlier on, Gregors is coming in the bottom lane for Viperio over Kaz. And I mean, as long as I've known Viperio almost by, I believe, the first split, Kaz has been their AD carry. I think for at least 2 splits now. So it is definitely very strange to see Gregors come in, but it's the decision that the management have made. So they have to feel confident because, I mean, it's their opportunity, their shot to make it into the UKLC. And of course, on the other side, Bulldog roster hasn't actually changed, which to some may actually be a bit of a surprise. But we know what they can do. I think if you've been watching the UKLC, it's more going to be interesting to see how Viperio decide to approach a lot of these drafts in particular, because again, it's been a lot of downtime for Bulldog, so Viperio haven't really been able to study necessarily what they'll be looking at, and it will most likely be a very sort of meta-esque draft.
Yeah, that's probably what we can expect. The idea of not necessarily going for very, very focused bans in terms of players individually, but going for a more general sense. And we were just teasing you a little bit with that pick and ban phase. We'll just be getting a update on that one very, very shortly. But it's going to be fascinating to see how these two teams decide to play. And we alluded to it just before the break, so that everyone who watched the pre-show can have a little bit of a head start on this one, about these two teams having very clear areas of strength, as it were, areas where they really, really thrive. For Viperio, their jungler, Johnny Rico, has been exceptional throughout the entire split, always looks very, very good. For Bulldog, they've got different areas of strength. Down that bottom side, Vyusi has been really, really exceptional and has been impressive, much more than we necessarily expected. Coming into this UKLC season, everyone was kind of like, has he ever really done it before at this level?
Yeah.
And he's looked pretty good from memory, but you don't seem as convinced.
I mean, no. Actually, I feel Johnny Rico's always kind of sat somewhere in the middle, and always as kind of a fringe jungler that could be on the top end of the UKEL junglers. And it just seems this split he's finally sort of found that magical groove, that middle ground where he's just on tempo of everything, and he seems to be dominating a lot. So I'm not necessarily too surprised to see that he's been performing as well as he has, and that we've been praising him as much as we have been. Because I think it's been sort of a relatively longish time in the making. And there are, honestly, the UKL has quite a fair few good junglers in the league. So it's kind of hard to stack up sometimes when you've got, you've had people like Dunlosi, you had No Name in there for a little while for that one split as well, I believe in spring. So, there's always at least a couple of rotating junglers that are actually quite strong in the UKL, but we're back into Champ Select. Just had a minor bug issue, it seems. And Udyr, and not really too surprised to see Hecarim banned away from Johnny Rico, and then Seraphine on the other side for Viperio.
Yeah, as you say, very strong meta bans. You want to get rid of these champions. Lilia also going off the table, and it feels bad to be a jungler nowadays, Honestly, all the good champs just getting banned away fresh makes a lot of sense to be removed as well.
So I think with the 3 jungler bans, it could set up Bulldog here for a jungle first pick, just because, we've seen basically a majority of the S tier picks taken down here. You start to look at things like the Olaf, but with Thresh gone and being on blue side, Rel is also a very fine first pick. And that gives Viperio the opportunity to pick a jungler for Johnny Rico here, which can't necessarily be punished. And with these bans, you could even look at something like the Graves as maybe the sort of premier jungle option here if they want it. But you'd expect jungle plus that support rotation to come in just because of the priority that Viperio do usually have for Johnny Rico. And Alistar, I think there's been a lot of discussion about this matchup. I still think it's relatively here nor there. It just depends on which support manages to find the better engagers. I don't think one's necessarily better than the other. But that being said, I still think Rel has a little more flexibility in what she can actually offer to a team.
Yeah, she's got that much more defined disengage alongside the engage, which is something that Alistar can have a little bit, but lacks somewhat. But speaking of disengage, it's fine if your marksman can do it themselves, and with the Xayah pickup coming through, we'll be able to do just that.
Yeah, Xayah, very strong. It's not really much to say as an AD carry in this kind of meta. She kind of almost does it all. The only thing she doesn't really do well at is diving, moving forward. That's about it. So we'll see now what views he wants. And it seems like we're going to get the Samira plus rail lane, which we know very strong, very heavy kill lane. And they're actually going to see Shifting lock in the Orianna. So let's see if Viperio want to sort of go down the route of taking a jungler and then banning out 2 more, because honestly, you could really thin out the jungle pool here in that sense. But they don't really have to show the jungler if they don't want to. But if they do go down the mid lane option here, the jungle pool is definitely going to get thinned out a whole bunch.
Yeah, with the Azir being locked in, that will be the mid lane matchup that we're going to have to see. But as you say, junglers could now be removed. Stuff like the Nidalee, stuff like the Graves that have kind of been that second tier of jungler could be removed. But top lane as well could look to take a hit.
Yeah, top lane as well, of course. Top lane and jungle, the only 2 lanes remaining here. Malphite plus the Aatrox. Aatrox away from Hachi. It kind of goes without saying the guy had a phenomenal week 1, and then Aatrox was banned away from him in phase 1 for quite a while. So not too shocked. And let's see if Viperio follow up with another top lane ban. You would maybe expect them to potentially ban away Zion's Nidalee, but it's actually going to be the Jarvan. So I wonder what they're actually prepping here with that Jarvan ban in mind. I'll have to kind of wait and see, because honestly, Viperio have a pretty good composition to deal with dive. So maybe they're just looking to sort of remove away some kind of wombo combo option, as Nars also taking a hit here. So 3 top laners and 1 jungler. I think if you're Viperio, you probably still take Johnny Rico's jungler, all things considered. But let's see what the option is, because Bulldog, they're going to have to counterpick it plus blind 1.
I mean, the Graves is the one that is screaming at me like, hey, pick me! I'm the top tier jungler that's left on the table. And it looks like Viperio have heard him. We'll be locking that one in. The Nidalee could be a response coming through here from Bulldog, and then they will have to blind pick their top lane.
Yeah, I expect out of Zion probably the Nidalee. There are a couple of other junglers still sort of there, but from what I know from Zion's champion pool, it would probably be the most on-character thing for him to pick. And you could do something like Renekton and Nidalee at the same time, and then you have a very strong top side to play through. And, you know, in 4, he's going to have to pick something that can survive dive like that, because at that point, you can't really pick a carry when you're dealing with Renekton versus Nidalee. You will likely just get bullied out on the top side. And with a jungler like Graves, who can't necessarily contest as strong a skirmish like that, it could be very dangerous. And I mean, Volibear falls right under the same category as Renekton. So in 4, it's going to be a very tough R5 for him. Let's see what he does have in his locker, though.
You could say he's in for a rough laning phase. Haha. But in all seriousness, Info has shown a lot of very strong performances on these tankier top laners. The Nara and the Malphite, definitely 2 that were in his wheelhouse before getting removed. Maybe could he on something like the On Duty, or could go somewhere completely different, going to be picking up the Karma, which, why be a tank yourself where you can make the entirety of your team pretty tanky?
Yeah, very interesting. Okay, so we've seen a lot of sort of, we've seen a steady rise in Karma priority, or sort of picks, I wouldn't say priority, as it did get buffed. I believe the Q cooldown was reduced by 1 at all levels, and then this also had another buff over the course of Season 11. So it's had some love taps applied to the champion, and it's now laneable. So I think it's a very interesting option here, because now it actually offers what is essentially a free carry team in Viperio actual utility on top of those 2 champions. So Karma, once we're out of the laning phase, can provide a lot, but I think in terms of having to deal with Volibear plus potentially Nidalee diving you, it's a tough ask to survive some of those dives. I think once she has a couple of items under her belt, it sort of components, tanky components, not support components, she could potentially survive those dives, but the chances are she just won't. So curious to see how Info is going to survive this potential onslaught on the top side, but I think Viperio, they've drafted themselves a lot of scaling, a lot of comfort, and I think that's kind of the way to go when you're coming into a team where you didn't necessarily know what they were going to aim for in the draft phase, right? So you draft yourself something stable, something with wave clear, something that has very defined item spikes, and then you play around those. Whereas Bulldog, they've got a little bit of everything. They've got Orianna for scaling, they've got Samir, who eventually, I wouldn't call her a hyper scaler, but does have a pretty tremendous mid to late game, but not hyper late game. And they've got a fair amount, or enough engage, though I don't think it's necessarily the best hard engage, especially talking about being into the likes of Azir Zaya. So I think both these compositions function very strangely into one another. I don't think one necessarily has a innate advantage over the other until we start talking about some of these mid-game fights where things like objective and choke control really starts to play a major factor.
And I mean, that is where the two teams and their ability to play these compositions will really shine through. It's always great to see in the early stages of a matchup where one team is coming up from the division below, one team is fighting for their position in the league that they've been playing in, to have compositions that are very, very even, to not have one team coming in like, well, we just win this game after 20 minutes, assuming we're not 7k gold down, which is exactly what we've seen here. But as we move on to the rift, we've got Bulldog on the blue side, Viperio, the competitors, coming in on the red. Something that has struck me, and I want to get your opinion on this, is Samira actually on this patch, because she took a bit of a beating for a few patches there. She wasn't feeling so hot, but is she coming back into vogue now?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to say. I don't think I've seen her too much on 11.6. I think other AD carries like Jinx have sort of taken the pedestal in terms of what teams are happier or more willing to pick. But I think when you're talking about being paired up with Rel in the laning phase, you have so much kill threat and so much snowball ability, which Samira, even though she's been hit in many different ways off of the nerfs, she is still a champion that snowballs really well. So I think it's going to be sort of looking more at the laning phase to see how VUC actually exits the first sort of 10 to 15 minutes and whether or not he is ahead on this champion.
And I mean, with kind of the flashpoint for this game, at least in terms of Bulldog, going to be that top lane, right? We talked about Nidalee, Volibear really wanting to bully Karma and make her life as miserable as possible in the first 10 to 15 minutes. It might leave bot lane on a bit of an island. VUC and Poke, we know, are very good players, but if Johnny Rico decides to split the differences, cut the losses in the top side, and look to play around the Zarya and Alistair, who have decent early amounts of damage and engage, then maybe Samira comes out of lane a little bit worse for wear. But as minions crash and the players start duking it out, you said that there's no advantage in the draft particularly. Are you feeling confident to give me a prediction for this game?
Well, okay. So it depends on your philosophy of League of
Legends. Okay.
Because if you're, let's say, an LSer, right? You probably highly prefer Viperio's draft. Okay. And I'm actually in that camp. I do actually prefer Viperio's draft. I think that you've got scaling out of the jungle that, yes, can get outpaced early game by the Nidalee, but you've got enough wave clear in the mid lane that Nidalee shouldn't really be able to necessarily constantly invade the Graves on every single camp that he attempts to take. And you've got scaling out the bottom side, and honestly, the onus is more or less on Bulldog to actually find engages, and Viperio's composition is very well geared to deal with said engages. So, in that sense, you've got a lot of advantages there, but the issue with that is Viperio's draft in the early game is exploitable. You've got this Karma on the top side, which is weak to dives of Nidalee and Volibear, but curiously, Zion's actually opted to path down towards the bottom side, so that's not even going to be a threat or an issue for Viperio to have to deal with on this first rotation of jungle camps. And on the bottom side, we've already kind of highlighted, Samira and Rel can be this very snowbally bottom lane, which you find one kill, all of a sudden the enemy bottom lane actually just can't lane 2v2.
You can see Jungler's going to be going up against the same Scuttle Crab, but it is Zion who is there first, as Fork on the full clear, hasn't done the Krugs just yet, but should be able to grab that one, especially with Poker moving up the river to assist. In this 1v1, Volibear versus Karma, we talked about how Karma's very easy to dive with the Nidalee there, but if Nidalee's not around, is it okay for Viperio's top lane?
Yeah. Info will be totally okay if it's in isolation. It'll just be a bit of a farm fest. Hachi is gonna have to deal with this kind of irritating poke where eventually he will kind of be soft forced off some waves, but the Doran Shield plus some other runes and just Volibear's innate sustain can carry him through, as he's going to take a reset here on this kind of frozen lane, but Info, I think, has hit the minions too many times, so it'll actually bounce back, but Hachi wants to stay, so it's not even really going to be an issue. Both junglers back on the top side. Keeping to note, Zion has actually not reset, but Johnny Rico has, and he's taking his second spawn Krugs right now.
At least spotted him out on there, so it could be a scuffle in the top side, but I don't think the dive is on, knowing that Graves is around. Both junglers will back away from the situation, and going to look for that first reset on the Nidalee. Mid lane matchup, something that we see quite often. The Azir versus the Orianna, two pretty safe, long-range wave clear mid laners. Do we expect to see too much action here if other people don't get involved? Poke, I said if other people don't get involved. Is it going to be favoured one way or the other?
No, I think that anytime I've spoken to a mid laner about this matchup, you do sometimes get conflicting opinions. You get, oh, it's really annoying for Orianna, or it's very irritating for Azir, but I think they both realistically can just kind of sit there, scale, and then eventually do their own thing. I think Orianna definitely can be a little more vulnerable in this lane just because of how the Shurima shuffle can just kind of come out of nowhere sometimes, and that's when you start talking about intervention from other members on the team. And it can kind of get scary for Orianna, especially if she doesn't have flash. But Azir, it feels, with that Emperor's Divide, with the mobility of the drift, should always kind of have the upper hand in this lane, but I don't think it's some kind of overbearing advantage either. As taking a look at junglers, both now on the bottom side, seems like Zion actually wants to try and get a start up on this dragon, given that he has mid lane and bottom lane priority for now. But Generico's here, and I don't think these waves are necessarily going to stay crashed for a very long time. Zion's already kind of chunked out.
He's pretty low. The dragon's doing some work. You can see Generico over the wall with that blast cone. Can slide in and look to get the contest down, but no priority from any lanes, because the Vyusi and Shiklin are both able to turn up as well. Johnny Rico goes back, and the first dragon will go over to Bulldog. And it's not the end of the world for Viperio, but it's a nice thing to pick up.
Yeah, and I think actually the fact that now we're seeing a Infernal Dragon spawn also kind of halves the chances of having a very, very oppressive soul being spawned up. Because Cloud on Bulldog, I beg your pardon, it has its uses, but it's not necessarily the, it's not an Ocean Soul, it's not an Infernal Soul. So there are some cases, obviously, where Cloud Soul can be pretty oppressive. We have a list of those champions, Olaf, Lucian, a couple other mid laners too, where it just starts to feel like I don't want to have to deal with the movement speed. But should be okay as all. You see, could be in trouble.
Engage coming through from a Has poke, going reasonably low, but here comes the dive through Zion. Is there teleport coming down as well? First blood will be taken by Vyusi. His dive can continue as Hatchie's here and he's turned off the tower. Damage coming down, and Gregors will also fall. Hatchie makes the teleport worth it with a kill for himself, and that's 2 going over to Bulldog.
Yeah, 2 very quickly going over to Bulldog. It was kind of a misposition / misusage of spells by Vyusi, but had Zion in the area and critically had that teleport there and ready to be used. As I was talking about the Emperor's Divide.
The shuffle brings Shiklin back in, and Johnny Rigo with the snipe. It's a buster shot and it's a kill. Going over to Viperio.
Exactly what I was talking about just a moment ago. You can still kind of be vulnerable to these Emperor's Divide ganks. And Johnny Rico, all he really had to do was press his R key, picks up that kill credit for himself. I'm pretty happy about that, as Hachi just... It's just irritating, honestly, the karma. You're never necessarily in threat of being 100 to 0'd, but did he just laugh at that?
Yeah, he emoted as well. He was not pleased by that situation, I don't think, with Karma half helping him and forcing you off the wave, but it was convenient they're both bot side so that these two teams can move up to try and contest. There's Rich engage coming through from Poke now, as Johnny Rico and Zion behind him are both going to try and get involved. A lot of damage going down onto the Rel, who will be able to get away, though Johnny Rico needs to be careful, as Nidalee with the spears could look for a snipe. Has looking to block, but it's just going to take a face full of bullets from Vyusi, who will pick up the kill. Johnny Rico survives for now, but members of Bulldog might go hunting in the jungle. Can't find the Graves, though, as he's slid away. But that's another play going over Bulldog's way.
Yeah, another play going in Bulldog's way, and it was again kind of initiated by Viperio, looking for that gank. And you can kind of understand, you have that wave stacking in, sort of forces Bulldog to overextend to deliver, but you just don't know where Zion is. You don't have that information ready and available, and considering the bottom lane is now rotating, had rotated up, you kind of have to expect that the jungler's going to be there eventually. Unfortunately, he was there pretty much instantly. Very nice read all in all, but Viperio gonna fall very far behind off this play. A lot of waves were missed under that top tier 1 tower. Plates also dropped. Herald now is gonna be more standing gold to extend this lead for them. Not the best start in the world for Viperio. We kind of spoke about how the onus realistically was on Bulldog to make plays happen. It's not on the likes of Viperio here to force plays, but they have been trying to force, and 2 times in a row now it's not gone well.
Yeah, that's true. They had the mid lane play, which went quite well, but past that, it's been a slower start. If Viperio can hold off, though, if they can slow things down, stem the bleeding, and try and pick themselves up something positive in the next few minutes, then things could look better. And it could start with a play onto Shiklin. Once again, the divide into the damage, but this time Graves, once again, will pick up the kill exactly the same fashion, but it was a horizontal push rather than a vertical one this time.
Yeah, mathematics involved a little more in this one. As Hase is going to be the ninth cannon minion. Killikin. We will not forget that one. Certainly Hase won't, as
he was waiting. He was doing his best to allow the Alice to pick that one up with a stack, but he was a little bit too slow. Yeah. Hasn't yet. He's gone for the own boots, not the mob he wanted. He might now get engaged on, but Poke will not land the knock up, and Has might not even have fully noticed he's going to run back on the tower. Bit of vision cleared will show the members of Bulldog are hanging around, but with Dragon up in 35 seconds, and it is an infernal one for the second. That's not too surprising to know that people are going to be down there.
No, certainly not. And Zion with this Rift Herald likely was looking to actually put it down, but I think sort of misplay by Bulldog. They delivered the wave quite quickly. They could have had it stack up for one more wave, and then they could have delivered on about 3 stacked waves to allow that tower probably to just drop in general. I think too many waves would have been that Gregor and Hase would have had to have probably forfeited the whole tower. But the end result, with all of that priority and pressure down there, is still going to be this Infernal Dragon. Johnny Rico isn't even on that side of the map. More or less looking to see if he can find some jungle camps on the top side, it seems. But Archie going to kind of bodyguard him away temporarily, but he's at least going to find this Gromp camp. Archie.
Well, actually, Hachi's not too pleased about that one. Wants to defend the jungle as much as possible, but he's taking a lot of damage from this Graves, and with no support from anyone on his team, is going to be forced to back away. Gromp is still alive and will be taken up eventually by Johnny Rico, but the Rift Herald is going to be dropped bot because they know where the jungler is, and so much gold can be funneled over there. Probably even going to be able to take this entire bot tower, and at the 12-minute mark, that could free up members, especially Viperio and Poke, to move around the map a bit more and go hunting for a little bit of extra cash.
Yeah, they've got 2 more minutes to see if they can find any more plates, so see if they can. Viperio, unfortunately, not been on the better end of some of these early skirmishes or the setups around these neutrals. Sees them actually only sit about 1.7k down. I was expecting the lead to be a little bigger, all things considered, especially after the top side play, but perhaps neutralized by the mid lane gank and the waves potentially missed by Shiklin, as he's actually almost a full level down, given the fact that Killikin is level 10 and Shiklin only about a third of the way through level 9. Is one potential avenue for them to play through.
I mean, if you haven't been watching the UKL, if you're just a UKLC gamer, first of all, how dare you? Why aren't you watching the UKL? But secondly, Killikin kind of a monster on this as it, and has got that farm leader neutralizing things very, very well. And is now moving up towards that top side to try and grab himself some plate gold. Gregors has been given this mid lane to farm up safely, and getting this Zarya online as quickly as possible will be nothing but good for this Viperio roster, because while things have started a little bit slowly, as you said, the goal difference isn't massive. It's not insurmountable at this stage in pretty much any position. And as you can see, where the gold is lying in Viperio's favor is very much in the pocket of their mid-jungle duo.
Yeah, and not only that, it's actually Viperio as well, as on the opposite side here, as our observer was highlighting, I believe, the fact that he's 2,000 gold up on everyone on his team. Johnny Rico is the only one close, as Hase is being kind of bullied here.
Yeah, not having a good time. That members are turning up, and Poke might be on the wrong side of the fight. Going to be taking a decent amount of damage. Info is there. Teleport into the mid lane. Can he get here in time? Yes, he can, but Poke goes down first. Shiklin looking for the shockwave, but I can only find one, but it will disengage Zion from the fight as Hachi running on through Viperio, using that damage, and will be able to help pick up the kill onto Info. The fight could continue. Gregors goes up in the air, goes back down. Hachi is dead, as Zion throwing a couple more parting spears. Won't be able to find any damage for a kill, as Has, the one caught out, is still alive, and Viperio take the fight and could look to take the mid tower alongside.
Yeah, and I was actually going to kind of bring up, because we was talking about the gold in general, the fact that the gold lead isn't that big kind of means that Viperio's composition still works really well into this dive. It's not necessarily at a point where it's oppressive, and we kind of saw it highlighted right here, as we're going to have a replay, and it just starts off with Hase kind of sitting on his own vision, not really doing much, and it's just Poke and Zion who try and commit onto him, but it's an Alistar with an ultimate, so it's not like he's necessarily the easiest target to take down, and they just kind of push Bulldog and Poke in particular out. Poke kind of in no man's land, so he eventually just drops first. And Bayusi, through the shielding of the Immortal Shield Bow and Shiklin, manages to survive. Teleport from Hachi to try and provide some peel for Bayusi. Does find Infor, but kind of leaves himself in the middle of 4 members. The Featherstorm comes down, and with the Headbutt Pulverize, kind of just leaves him to his doom. And Bulldog kind of bite off a little bit too much in this engage. The end result kind of feeding over Viperio a little more gold, and I believe 2 kills into Gregor's pocket means that he's now, at the very least, he's got to get off force. He's still a fair amount of gold behind on Bayusi. Bayusi's probably about an item and a half at the moment. As you can see, he's actually going for that last West per second, so Lord Dominic's regard likely to be that second item completion. Seen a lot of rise in popularity for that item. Just in general, when you do the maths, it ends up being a stronger item than Collector, all things considered. So Collector's kind of fallen off as a second item for a lot of AD carries.
But the execute's funny.
But the execute's kind of,
you know,
yeah.
It's a cool concept, a little bit of extra gold as well, but really nothing to write home about. But this is a fascinating position for the game to be in, because there's a gold lead on the side of Bulldog, but that gold lead is all in one man's pocket, and that man is called Vyusi. So if they're not in the fight, or if they have a bad fight, then things can go disastrously wrong. And Vyusi played the last fight pretty well, and Viperio was still the ones who took the fight, took the advantage, and took the Rift Herald, which immediately charged into that inner tower mid. But Bulldog could well be looking for an engage here. Dragon is on the menu, and there comes Poke, looking for the damage. Hachi diving on through as well. Hasa as breaking up the backline. Knows members of Bulldog have to come in to peel. Killigan dives on in, getting the kill on 2 Volibear, and could look to continue the chase. A nice shockwave will disengage for now, but Has isn't interested in being disengaged, but misses the pulverize and will be forced to back away. Poke riding on the side, looking for a flank, maybe looking to save the mid lane tower, but won't do either, as they must look to contest this Ocean Dragon. Has takes a spear to the face. Needs to be very, very careful around this one, but there are enough members of Viperio pretty healthy to continue this fight or take the objective.
Yeah, and they've got auto economy too, so honestly, if Bulldog looks to contest this, I feel they'll just lose, but that's a brilliant spear off the Gregors.
Yeah,
Gregors in lethal range. Let's see.
They're going to be able to take the dragon and use the Emperor's Divide to disengage. Alistair may well fall and will fall to Zayen, who gets a spear onto Killikin, but does not dive on through. Graves is a little bit too strong to engage near, and Viperio will be able to back away. They trade their support for the dragon, and actually might just go fishing for a little bit more. The cat is in retreat, but Graves and Azir, looking to send them back, will be able to survive by the skin of her teeth, as Hachi's returned to the fight, already respawned, and could be looking to make sure that no more nonsense occurs. One more spear will be enough. Killikin chased away.
Killikin finally chased away. A nice combination of spears on the back end by Zayen there, putting a lot of pressure down on Viperio, but the underlining fact is Viperio stole away the dragon. They got that fight prior to it, and it set them up to take it, and it means that there's no immediate threat of that Ocean. So we've got the replay on our screen, and honestly, it's just a fight that Bulldog probably just can never realistically win. They've got to walk through a choke into Azir, into Zaya. There's just too much damage in CC. The dive on the backside by Hase to just sort of stop the Bulldog members from actually pushing forward as well, doing a lot of work there for his team. Bulldog weren't really able to lay damage down onto any meaningful members. And the positioning of the fight just heavily Viperio favored. Means that they end up taking the dragon on the back end, and to kind of see the gold graph, it's been around 2,000 either side at its peak, but that's kind of it.
Viperio had a really good first couple of minutes, huh?
Yeah.
A really good time for them, but it has been Bulldog sitting on around the same gold lead, and even though the fights have not been going well for them in the last couple of instances, are still sitting on around the same amount of gold ahead of their opposition in Viperio. But gold itself does not win you games, and losing team fights can well lose you games, as we have a look at exactly where all that gold's sitting, and it's still the 2,000 in Vyusi's pocket.
Yep, he is still a very scary AD carry. As Bulldog actually postured around this top side to take that tier 1, and on the other side, Viperio have Killikin all on his lonesome on the bottom lane here, as
Actually might be engaged on, actually has going to follow on through. They might have got the catch, but he's going to jump back in with that health. Gregors needs to be careful as Viusi found him, but does get rooted up and will be taken down. The goal lead is gone from this fight now as Hachi forced to flash away. Shiklin will be dove onto him. Killigan grabs that one. It's just tanky members and Nidalee alive, and Viperio want to chase. The blast cone will take members of Bulldog to safety, but Viperio turn on the style, grab themselves a couple of kills and break down the inner tower, moving towards the inhibitor at the 20-minute mark. Could look to siege this one down.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this was potentially a very, very bad time to die. I actually think Viperio are making a bit of an error here in actually pushing down the mid lane, because Baron just spawned and they took down the mid lane and Viusi, who is practically all of Bulldog's lead. I feel that the repercussions of that fight could have been far worse for Bulldog, but fortunately Viperio make the choice to push down that mid lane. They do get a lot of standing gold though off the map from those 3 towers.
And the gold going into the pocket of Johnny Rico in that fight alongside Killikin. So everyone important is grabbing themselves kills. Not to say that Hassan and Infor, you're important too, but when it comes to gold, leave it to the carries. And Viperio grabbed themselves a gold lead for the first time in a long time. And honestly, every time there's been a full-blown fight or a skirmish at least, it's always gone the way of Viperio.
And I think it's just the difference in compositions when it comes to buying heads in these big 5v5 team fights, right? You've got Nidalee, who, you know, Nidalee's not made for team fighting. She's made for, you know, early game skirmishing and shadowing split pushes. It's just not her job really to be this amazing team fight carry. And if she is team fighting, if she wants to be really relevant, she has to find multiple long range spears, which means at that point, you're not even really team fighting. You're kind of posturing and just trying to find poke, which it's just not necessarily been the case all of the time. Setup hasn't been there for Bulldog. It's always been Bulldog fighting on Viperio's best conditions to win team fights. And because of that, they now find themselves down towers. A little bit of gold. The gold kind of just about even. Only really 100 or so gold separating the two teams. But the map state, the state of the game kind of just feels heavily Viperio favored now. Johnny Rico is going to continue to scale into this late game. Killikin finally now has his 2 items. Gregors isn't far away from the Essence Reaver either. Whereas on the other side, item spikes aren't necessarily going to be that impactful, right? Zion, sure, he's going to move towards that Zonya's, and it's going to make him a little hard to take down the team fights, but it's not going to be anything special. Shiklin's got a Morello, and isn't going to be too useful.
Viusi might have been called out under tower. It's only a Sun Disc, but the damage is big. Hass on the side actually manages to pick up Hachi alongside the rest of the team. The assassination doesn't go through, but it does in the 1v4.
Yeah, I mean, Bulldog are kind of just crumbling. I have no idea how Viusi ends up in that situation to be shuffled underneath the Sun Disc, but shuffled he is, and now Johnny Rico's just going to take this second Ocean Dragon. And there's not really going to be much an answer for Bulldog. They don't have the setup to threaten a Baron right now. There's no jungle camps, no tower to take really on the top side. The waves aren't set up for it. Kind of just lose out, and it's just a bit split up by Bulldog. Viperio kind of just doing what they have to right now, which is kind of just staying near each other. As long as they kind of stay in this death pool, but not clumped up too much to get shockwave, they're pretty much okay. It's just not really, again, there's no onus on them to find engages. It's on Bulldog to force Viperio into mistakes, into isolation where they can actually pick them off one at a time. But Viperio just making it too difficult.
And in all these fights, as you say, Bulldog look a little bit rusty. Maybe the having a massive gap between last series and this one is not the advantage that it could have potentially seemed when we were talking about it in the pre-show. Viperio have played a lot of League of Legends recently and are showing exactly how good at it they can be. But this game is no means done yet. The gold lead is not massive, less than 1,000 gold, so barely even worth mentioning. And still Viusi clinging on to a massive amount of gold over his lane opponent. But everywhere else across the map, you can start to see the gold lead is growing for Viperio. Jungle and mid lane especially interesting to look at.
Yeah, it is starting to balloon a little bit out of control now. About a conjoint 3,000 gold lead. Mid-jungle to mid-jungle. Give or take a few hundred as people are farming up and what have you. But Johnny Rico, start to finish, we highlighted him before the game as being a star player. for this Viperio roster, and he's definitely been showing up so far. He's found the key picks to keep his team in it in the early game. He's been using the gold really well. Bulldog just haven't really had much of a meaningful answer from the start of the game. And part of me kind of feels like it comes down even to some of that early game pathing from Zion, right? He didn't path balls at Volibear. They didn't make a dive happen into Infor. And whilst, yes, it's nice to get double scuttle, it's not necessarily a jungle matchup, which is so oppressive that that kind of a lead can turn into such great things if you don't have the perfect lane setup for it. And there's just not that much of an insane lane setup outside of the top side, which Bulldog didn't really play for to dominate that top side, and Johnny Rico kind of just went unchecked for it.
And it's been a pretty good game for the Greats, and it's been a pretty good game for everyone on Viperio, really. No one has been truly struggling. It hasn't looked bad from any branch of their team, and yes, Vyusi's been running the bot lane as, you know, he's wont to do every now and again. Gregors has been standing up, and with this being his debut in this tournament, obviously, and his debut really with this Viperio roster, fell behind in farm and is still significantly behind in farm, but in team fights has been playing them pretty well.
Yeah, he has been playing them pretty well, and I mean, it's no shame to be behind Vyusi in CS per minute. The man, I believe, in the entirety of UKLC has the highest CS per minute in the league. I don't think there's anyone with a higher CS per minute in the league than Vyusi. I'm sure some stat checker will correct me.
Shout at you like, actually, it's this player.
Actually, it's this guy. I think, is it KZ might have been kind of close, but I think Vyusi's sitting at about 11 CS per minute amongst all of his games on average. So, you know, the man knows how to farm. It's been a meme for an eternity. You know, the 400 CS per minute win condition with
400 CS per minute.
Poor.
That's good CS numbers. If he's getting 400 a minute,
yeah,
he's definitely doing more than anyone else in the UKLC. Even KZ.
He's teleporting lane to lane, taking every jungle camp on spawn. You know how it is.
He's good. Damn, he's good. And Zion needs to be careful. He's being caught out by Johnny Rico. He's looking to chase forward the slow on the red buff. It's keeping Nidalee at bay, half health before they turn away. Viperio could look towards this newly spawning Drake for their next play. It will be the sole point if they can grab this one. It'll be their third Drake, so one more required for that soul. And a little bit of poke coming out of Viperio's roster. And as a team, they've got a decent amount of poke on their side.
Yeah, they do. They do. Both sides have a bit of
I don't know about that engage. Just managed to get the stun onto Johnny Rico, but can't find the rest of the team. And actually, Grace does need to be a little bit careful with Volibear doing a decent chunk of damage. He's going to be forced to back away as members of Viperio turn off, get the shuffle, get the damage, and will look to kill him. Hachi is down, and the rest of Bulldog really don't have that much fire. He dives on him, but gets killed himself. And now Poke is the next one. The lambs to the slaughter as Bulldog chased away. Shiklin will be moving down river. Zion survives one last tap from In4, and the Orianna will be forced back. But again, it's a fight, so that means it goes Viperio's way.
Yeah, Viperio looking to pick up this third dragon here. As, Shiklin, one more auto attack's gonna do it.
Killikin, can you find the slide? No, you can't. Gonna let Shiklin get away with his life, but Baron might not be able to say the same as Viperio take the dragon and look towards it.
Yeah, this Graves, this Zaya, fully online, so this will be a pretty quick Baron takedown. Hachi does have teleport, and so does Shiklin. They could look to very easily disrupt this, but it's going to be a relatively tough ask. But there's no ultimate available from Gregors or Killikin, so they're actually going to pull this one off. And Killikin's actually still staying in the bottom. Little extra bit of CS. Perhaps looking to pick up a second needlessly large rod on his recall. But this now means Bulldog are potentially going to start this one up. And Viperio just all reset. So
yeah, only enforced there.
I think this is probably Baron. Okay, let's just see what happens here because it's burning real quick. It's gone. Yeah, it's gone.
Yeah, it's gone super, super low. Killikin maybe looking to get in and get the steal down. Enough damage is coming through, but it will be Bulldog securing that one. And head-scratching decision-making from Viperio means that they will lose out on the objective. Could they look to take the fight and deny the buffs from standing on these border players? No, they wouldn't even be able to do that. So definitely curious, to say the least.
Yeah, just kind of caught sleeping there. As we get the replay, it's a nice headbutt by Hase onto Hachi to just stop him from finding a full-on engage. But Hachi just commits heavily onto the Graves, and the Shockwave actually whiffs, finds no one in the river. And Viperio do a pretty good zoning job of keeping everyone away from Hachi until it doesn't really matter. Hase, again, more backline disruption, stops any potential follow-up. Bayusi tries to make the hero play, but doesn't have enough HP left in the tank to actually pull off that Inferno trigger. And it's just too much pillback available to Viperio here. And we've kind of said it once or twice. Don't want to sound like a broken record, but Viperio just have the slightly superior, or it's a much superior comp at dealing with what Bulldog actually want to do in terms of diving and finding members. Too many kiting, too many peeling, self-peeling options available. Which means that finding members consistently is difficult, but with this Baron in pocket, they can at least try and find something for now, as the fight HUD, ever so ominous.
Oh, it's spooky. And whenever it comes up, I'm like, oh, better stop drinking. What's going on? Is there a fight? But it's actually going to be Bulldog just sieging down this bot inner. We'll be able to secure that one. And Viperio have kind of put themselves in a bit of a weird position because they were dominating every single fight and are like, you know what, Bulldog? Have the siege tool, have the ability to fight us a little bit better with that AP and AD damage. And just hand over the Baron. Hand over the tower bot as well, and letting the lead that they built for themselves very, very workmanlike over the entirety of the last stages of this game go to waste, basically. So we'll have to see if they can come back with another decent team fight, but losing out on this Baron means that team fight can't turn into a push to win, really.
No, it never realistically would have been. I think unless Viperio made a tremendous mistake, it would have at best been all of the outer tier towers, I think, Bulldog could maybe hoped for, but that's a lot of work to do. 3 towers in about 3 minutes on a Baron buff, where can't even really dive the Viperio members just because of draft to draft. And now we sit 1 minute away from this Ocean Soul, potentially for Viperio, 4 Dragon Ocean Soul, but Bulldog, they're looking to make a play. They're all stacked up in this bush.
Hanging around, Bayusi taking a little bit of damage, but watch out for Shicklin. Watch where the ball is, because a big shockwave could be disastrous for Viperio. Jungler versus top laner in the bot side, but Hachi does have teleports and would be able to get to the fight where Johnny Rico would have to walk. Hachi actually looking to move in and cut off any access to this one. And we saw last team fight how Volibear can do so much damage to this Graves. It was almost a pick in and of itself on the side before the rest of Viperio came, but it's going to take them a long time to get here, as Hachi might look towards the stun. We'll be able to find it even with the slide as John Rico forced back away, but this time Volibear not feeling so healthy. Game 4 arrives just to make sure there's nothing crazy going on, and we'll be able to move back towards the mid lane, towards the Sun Disc. As Viperio weather the storm. Baron now gone, allows them to be fully back in the driving seat.
Yeah, and Bulldog sort of committing into that bottom side jungle kind of means that Viperio are now going to have tempo, because they're going to be able to move up into this mid lane, catch that wave super high. And Bulldog know this. They don't really care. They care more about the positioning, looking for an engage.
Looks for the engagement, actually just goes down. Teleport's going to be in the middle of the fight for Hachi, as Has looks to stand directly on the ward, but Hachi going to be turning up, killing it on the side, trying to get some poke down, but the soldiers can't find a route in. As Hassan might be the one who has to hit the help up Pulverized Dragon has been started by Bulldog as members of Viperio rush towards it. Can they get the steal? Can they get the smite? Johnny Rico going low though. Needs to be careful. Will be able to steal away the soul. And now Viperio have that advantage. Moving into the rest of the fight. Gregor's diving on back with Vyusi's doing so much damage and is still alive in the middle of the fight. Will be shut down with one big crit. But Shicklin grabs the double with the same orb and will now look to return to the fight. Killigan diving on forward. No ultimate available for the Oriana. Means that she's going to have to dance around the fight. Ballerina hours, but does manage to pick up the kill on to the rest of the team. That's going to be an ace going over to Bulldog. Shicklin take a bow. Superb team fighting. They lose the soul, but a couple of them survive.
Heroics on both sides, honestly. Hase again with more phenomenal team fighting. Key critical pulverizers and headbutts to keep important members away from his own carries. And on the other side, just spoke about Shicklin. Vyusi also just dealing so much damage on this Samira now. 4 items actually, plus a BF sword finish now once he returns to the Rift. So really is a major threat. But again, Viperio, they pick up that 4th dragon. We have a replay here and it's already Poke's dead. It's a 4v5 and Bulldog kind of desperately in this pit, and Johnny Rico somehow, someway still manages to find the smite. The ultimate comes out for Reisu and just deals so much damage. Just look at the 704 comes out a Q onto Infor 639. And eventually Shiklin comes in and cleans up the work of his AD carry. And Killikin almost finds the default onto Shiklin, but it's just not enough. As Bulldog now positioning on this Baron, but it's going to be Viperio with the Ocean Soul, so it's going to be difficult to fight.
That's the Sombrero coming out of Shiklin, though. Just need to be careful. Hassa has popped the ultimate, the Unbreakable, and is trying to get away. Greg's on the side, going to start to put out damage, but with the Alistair going so low, in fact going down, Viperio 4v5 once again in this situation. Need to be massively careful, but they cannot give this Baron buff away. Hachi hanging around in the bush, looking to keep members outside of the pit while it's started up. It goes to half health. Poke the same, does need to be careful. In for Gregors, Killikin, Johnny Rico, all putting out decent amount of damage at this point. And will look to join the Baron in the fight. Hatchy on the side though, looking for a flank. Won't be able to find anyone really, but is so big with that gargoyle. Snowflake Gregors has to jump up in the air and get the root down, but it will be enough. Viusi is down, but so is Gregors, so is Killikin in before, and Johnny Rico running for the hills. Hatchy looking to chase, but won't find it with one last Q to the face, has to back away. But Bulldog can look to return to this Baron, a little bit worse for where health bar wise, but having taken out members of Viperio.
This is a real dangerous Baron attempt, in my opinion. Infor and Johnny Rico can poke these guys off.
Looking maybe to get the engage alongside the Purple Worm. A decent amount of damage come through. Zion, that's the double from the ultimate. Hatchy goes down for the triple. Johnny Rico not messing around. The Bounty Hunter picks up his due and moves towards the mid lane.
It's just so infuriating. Bulldog, you're so chunked. You know Johnny Rico is going to have ultimate available again soon because it's such a low cooldown ability. And now Viperio can honestly threaten potentially to end. They've got the waves to do it. But you see it's coming up, yes, but there's 3 important members on the top side that just aren't here, and it's just poke right now. With the teleport as well.
Looking to get involved, and will Bulldog be able to defend? Viusi and Poke standing under this double tower setup. Going for the engage, gets a nice one as Viusi dives on into the fight. The Empress Divide will not land on to the Samira, who's going to be resurrected up, but the support's already dead. And there's the shutdown from Killigan. Just like that, Viperio turned what looked like a rough position into the game. And they're going to start themselves off with a win in the first series of this relegation tournament. First game down, only one more needed to pick up that W.
Bulldog only have themselves to blame for losing that game. I'm just going to say it how it is. That was just a poor decision to try and start up the Baron. You know the Graves is fed. You know Karma is still going to be able to lay down very meaningful poke. You guys are all 50, 40% HP. You can't start that Baron up. That is the height of sinful behavior on the Rift. And it cost them the game. It cost them the first game of the series. Viperio, they fought tooth and nail. Bulldog started to actually come back in it in the later games stages in some of these team fights via Viusi's insane team fight damage and some of Shiklin's heroics to mop up some of the damage laid down by his AD carry. But it doesn't matter when you start up Baron like that, and Viperio kind of on what feels like a whim just sneak away game 1.
Yeah, it was clinical at the end where they were like, hey, this is a big mistake from Bulldog. Maybe we can turn this into a W. And that's exactly what they did. But we're going to jump to a short break. When we come back, we'll be breaking down exactly how Viperio picked up their first win in this best of 3 series. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you in a few minutes.